and it involves Destin Legary, former IGN Destin Legary. He did a video that I'm not going to say got him in hot water with the community. He asked a question, and I watched the video twice. Some of what he's saying, I understand. Some of it, I was a bit taken aback. So, Fuzzy, let's get to this Destin Legary video. Now, I'm not going to play it. I listen. I've talked about Destin. I'm still supporting Destin, even though he got himself in a bit of a pickle with the community with the whole South to Midnight situation. Listen, things blow over. He had an opinion. I didn't like his opinion, but listen, that's his opinion. It is what it is. He put out a video, and it's an opinion video. And again, folks, it's his opinion. And he says Xbox buying Activision was pointless. Okay, now there's a lot to unpack here. Again, let's just start off with Destin Legary is not a monster because he didn't like how it's being handled. Let's just get that right out, because I'm sure there's going to be somebody like, oh my God, Boom's attacking him. I am not. I disagree with him 1,000%. Now, in the video, which of course, like I said, I've watched twice, he specifically brings up the backwards compatibility situation. And in this aspect of the video, he is 100% right. We've all been waiting for the singularities. We're all waiting for the HDR boost and the frame boost for something like Prototype 1 and 2, right? This is what we're waiting for. We're waiting for the big announcement, Fuzzy Belvedere, of when they're going to dump the entire Call of Duty collection in there with all the bells and whistles. And again, I'm not a PC guy. I'm not a developer. I would imagine that having to do each one of these games is a process. I don't think it's copy and paste. At least, please, someone in the chat, if you're a developer, let me know that that's not true. It's fine. I don't think they could right click and just magically make something like Prototype work on the Series X, and it's running with HDR boost, and it's got frames, and it's got all the bells and whistles. I mean, folks, when backwards compatibility was a thing, they had an entire dev team that was doing it. There was a team that did this. Now, if you remember last year's Business Direct, where you had Phil Spencer, you had Sarabon, you had Matt Booty. Sarabon specifically said that they were making sure that games will be forward and backwards compatible, which means that this team that was a thing. Remember, it got shut down. They weren't doing it anymore. They had to invoke a new team with this new direction. So it's obviously a lot of work. But more specifically, Jez Corden actually responded to him, and he says something that's very interesting, and it makes a lot of sense. And I do want to get the thoughts of you, Fuzzy Belvedere, but I want to get the chat involved in this. And I'm reading from my phone, folks. I freaking hate that, but that's because Twitter's acting funny, and I have it on my phone. I saved the page, so bear with me. Apologies. Jez Corden goes on to say, I think this argument hinges on very fully underestimating how long integrations on this scale actually take. With all of the technical debt involved and the ongoing manpower the games themselves actually need, to suggest that they can just turn around WoW and on console in 17 months is crazy. And why he mentions WoW is because that was part of the rant. Destin Legary wants to know how come WoW has not been added to Xbox Game Pass. How come WoW isn't part of this service? And well, I mean, it's been 17 months, right? Or 18 months now. This was a big integration. This was Activision, Blizzard, and King. That's a lot of work. Again, Destin, not a monster. I do think it was a bit narrow-sighted, suggesting how come everything isn't already done, considering the size of this merger. But I understand his frustration with the older games, that more specifically the Activision library that we've all been expecting to drop in. And they've kind of been a little bit slow, we have to admit, about doling out the games. You've had Diablo 4, you got the new Tony Hawk, you had Tony Hawk 1 and 2, you had Spyro, you had Crash. There's been a few, but I think what we're all waiting for is the onslaught of games, even if they're in blocks of 5 or 6 games per drop, because that's the speed that they could do the backwards compatibility for. Like, for instance, Prototype 2, Singularity. We want to play these games. They need to make them backwards compatible. And again, this is the other thing. When I heard some comparisons to Sony, the way they do theirs, folks, this is night and day difference. Sony takes a game from their archives and they drop it into PlayStation Plus, and it's literally the same game you played 27 years ago. Jumping Flash looks like Jumping Flash from the PlayStation 1 days. That's just the way it is. Twisted Metal 2, an amazing game, looks like Twisted Metal 2 from the PlayStation 1 days. And that's because they don't do anything to it. Xbox is different, and they do all of the bells and whistles that you would expect. Again, I mentioned this before. Put in Fusion Frenzy if you have the disc, or download it. It looks like a new game. Now, is it one-to-one, like a brand new game? No, but it looks phenomenal for a game that's going to be 25 years old next year. So I understand some of Destin's frustration, but I do think that from a business perspective, we know why they did this. And this kind of a merger is a shot in the arm initially with the Call of Duty going into Game Pass and how much money they made, how many new subscribers, how much money the thing made on PlayStation. That's the quick shot in the arm. But this is one of those long-term 5 and 7 year things that you may not see the worth of it now. But I think if you look down the road, you can see why they did this. Let's get your thoughts, man.
Yeah. All right, so I'll start with the basic reason why there was the merger. I know he asked why, but he wasn't asking this specific why. But the comes down to Xbox and Microsoft's bottom line. The opportunity to make more in the gaming space with having that asset was the whole reason why they acquired them. Now, that's basically a given. That should be an unspoken, common sense thing. But when it comes to the time it's taken them to add some of their back catalog into Game Pass, it has taken a lot longer than anticipated. Some of that we can thank for the long drawn out battle to actually acquire them with some of the government agencies, going back and forth as far as some of the things that they would have to do, or some of the hoops they would have to jump through to make the deal go through. So that wound up taking a good bit longer than even Microsoft anticipated. And that kind of put them behind, the 8 ball to some extent. Like you said, with the team that was doing the back compat stuff being disbanded, focusing more so on the next piece of hardware as far as forward compatibility, making sure that stuff that they've already worked on will be able to work on the upcoming hardware, as well as what we're playing today, and even Xbox One console generation stuff being able to work on Xbox Prime or whatever they wind up calling the next one. There's a lot of moving parts. I see some or a few in the chat I may mention as far as the AI aspect that will come into play, possibly helping them speed some of this process up. But the key thing is with AI, as you know, whenever you make an AI request, sometimes it's freaking awesome. Other times it's complete nonsense. So they're more than likely having to double check and recheck to make sure that the actual game that was supposedly up-resed or uplifted by AI actually works on the hardware and doesn't have weird artifacting or other issues going awry in that process. And the other thing, there's some other things that Microsoft is working on. Now, there are plenty of great programmers out there that have kind of beat them to the punch as far as having 360 emulation on PC. But there is an official version of that is working in the background. I don't know if it's something that's going to be targeted towards the handheld or just the overall next generation of boxes, but they are looking at different ways of emulating stuff, whether that's through AI or that's through just basically the core setup of the chipset and being able to take the newest chipset and dummy it down to what it was, for that old hardware. It's a little bit easier for Xbox considering they didn't do the cell processor thing like PlayStation did for the PS3 generation, but there is still a lot of, busy, I wouldn't say busy work, but a lot of, things that have to be tweaked and tuned and so forth to be able to have that work, flawlessly like the consumer would expect. So there are programmers out there that already have emulators for that stuff. Microsoft is working hard at doing the same, but I don't know. For me, my overall look at the Activision deal, yeah, it can be a little frustrating. Like for me, the more frustrating part is that not everything, and this also includes for Bethesda, not everything that is playable on Xbox has that same rate of like cross progression, cross save, which I know that's an even bigger hill for them to climb if that wasn't an intended process within that game to begin with. But having it where some of the older titles that now, since they're under Xbox and Xbox, their whole creed moving forward is to be dual entitlement on both console and PC, so you can play your games anywhere you choose to, being able to stream those same games, which we see now, the owned games that you can stream are being added, at a relatively slow pace. I'm not sure what exactly is involved, and I don't think any of us really know. But a lot of that process, I'm pretty sure, takes a good bit of time to make sure it doesn't break things or doesn't have it where you lose access to games that you own digitally for a number of reasons. Like there's a recent update that they did that, at least for the people in the like the prototype program or the insider program, where it was causing some problems with the updates and stuff like that. With that testing, they got to make sure this stuff works fully fleshed out when it comes to, doing the full release as far as for the, hardware that's not inside the insider program and such. So I wish they were working a little bit faster, but I think the only thing that will, encourage them to work a little faster is us voting with our wallets to some extent, but I don't have any instructions on how you can encourage them to work faster on that stuff. Like, I guess the big thing is we're getting some of the new titles already in the service from Activision, which is great. That should be the case without a doubt. Some of their older titles, I guess we can hound them on social media, or withhold funds for new game purchases and things like that. But then that probably tells them a different message than the message we would be probably trying to send. Like if you withhold money on new purchases, then they'll be like, well, maybe they didn't like this game, so maybe we should close this studio. And we don't want them going that route. But yeah, I don't have a game plan of how we can encourage them other than hounding them on social media, which only has but so much reach, I guess you could say. I mean, we are the enthusiasts. We're listening to podcasts. We're posting on social media. We're talking to our friends and family about it. The casuals aren't really that active or participate in that. So they're the ones that would probably have more of an influence if they withheld purchasing certain things or withheld, using that platform if they didn't get, their back catalog already taken care of and things like that. But once again, that's a hard, fight to bring to Xbox in that regard. But yeah, I totally understand what Activision's acquisition was. I totally understand that it takes time for these things to go into the catalog because of programming and so forth. And yeah, they may be the richest company, and sure, they should be able to hire all of the best programmers out there to be able to get this product done. But then again, if that's the case, then expect that we're going to have to pay on the back end with an increase to Game Pass or an increase to other costs elsewhere type of thing. So I don't know. I guess we can either be patient or we could move on from Xbox. I don't know. Me, I'm going to be on the be patient side, and on occasion when it bothers me enough where it'd be nice to have an older Call of Duty that I owned on the previous hardware to work on my current hardware. You know, that's all I can say. It's kind of a tough spot, but yeah, it sucks, but it's kind of expected given how things are, especially if the focus is on new studios, new games, new IPs, and all of that coming into Game Pass, and then as well as third party and stuff like that. But who knows? Maybe they surprise us by the end of the year with all of the Call of Duties coming to Game Pass, which to me that would make the most sense. That would be whenever they're looking to make a big push for either the next hardware or the next Game Pass milestone where they're pushing to hit 50 million subscribers. Maybe that's the way they do it. I honestly don't know.
Well, I mean, listen, whichever way they decide to go, I think that we are as gamers are going to keep winning, right? Whether it be games into Xbox Game Pass, and I'm talking about new releases, to older backwards compatible releases that are going to be dumped in at some point or another. Now, they are working on new technology that's going to use AI. Now, is that the technology that's going to help move this, push the needle? I don't think so, because that technology seems years out. So I think they're probably doing it the old-fashioned way, and that's per game. Again, it's a lot of work because it's a monster-sized library. Now, granted, I'm not going to sit here and disagree with Destin about being disappointed. Of course, we want to be able to play something like Prototype. Like if you gave Prototype the HDR and frame boost and all the bells and whistles that these games that are backwards compatible are known for, it's going to look and probably feel like a new game. I would like to believe that if it did get a lot of play from people in the community, that they would either remake it because that game is freaking old, or it'd be like a cause and effect situation where people are talking about it and they're going to make a sequel, which would be really dope. Is that going to happen? I'd like to believe so. Singularity is another one. And you've heard me mention about this game. It is so good. It is. I can guarantee you that if you polled everybody in the chat, most people never played the game. It was during the Xbox 360. It was on PS3, 360. It was freaking phenomenal. I think Ravensoft did it, if I'm not mistaken. Well, they own them. This game deserves to be played by other people, and even more so if it wound up coming out and it attracted the player base, deserves a sequel for sure. Anyone that's played it knows exactly what I'm talking about. The game is just phenomenal. But there are a lot of other games that people are waiting for. Now, the WoW thing, and somebody in the chat actually made mention of it. Why would they give away the $15 sub that people are paying for? I mean, that makes sense. I mean, it could bring a lot of people to Xbox Game Pass if they offered it. Like for instance, if you were a PC guy or gal and they added WoW to PlayStation to Xbox Game Pass for PC, that would be ridiculous because you're already paying your $15 a month, but then you would take that $15 and trade it in for new games day and date, and I'm getting WoW too. Like that would be a way to get people into the service. Now, is that padding the numbers? I guess some people would argue, yeah, it is. But if you move those subscribers from WoW over to Game Pass, people would be like, wait a second, I'm getting WoW and I'm getting all of this for the same price. Are we insane? Now, again, that sounds crazy, but I don't know if they would do that. I don't know. And any thoughts to the why isn't WoW, on PC?
That's a tough one because of the way WoW is structured. It's not like Diablo. It's not like, it's more like Final Fantasy 14 without the free to play aspect, which I haven't played WoW in God knows how long. So the best I could think is if you did kind of like the way Final Fantasy 14 has, where up to a certain point you can play it free, have that portion of it in Game Pass. But then again, if you're able to play it free, then you don't really need Game Pass for it. Uh-huh. But I guess the only other thing would be possibly offer it as a perk to Game Pass Ultimate subscribers once a year, like you get a month free or something along those lines. Like I think that would be the compromise that they can make because of that being a subscription model game, or make it where if you have Game Pass Ultimate, you save $3 a month or $5 a month or whatever on your monthly subscription. I think something along those lines, which I'm not sure if that's the case, if you would be able to, if you are an Ultimate subscriber, if you get any discount on the subscription. But to me, that would probably make the most sense, because then those that were only subscribed to WoW might be more willing to dip their toes into, Game Pass for that subscription discount, or at least try it and see what it's about. Although I'm pretty certain at least half of those that have played WoW have either played on Game Pass or used Game Pass at some point. So I guess the best way is to incentivize it that way. That's about the only thing I can think of. A subscription model game is always going to be problematic for something like Game Pass. Like that's why at one point I was thinking maybe Grand Theft Auto 6 goes that route. And it's like, oh, you can play it for free, but you'll be like homeless and not have any weapons, and you'll have to work your way, do side jobs or delivery jobs or something like that to be able to get your first weapon or whatever the case is, kind of deal. But yeah, a subscription game, give us a discount or give us a perk once a year for a free month. I think that's probably the best compromise.